Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the cause of Christ among Free Will Baptists around the world. And today I have with us Mr. Chris Moix. He's a pastor there outside of Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, actually lead pastor, I believe, at the Harrah Church in Oklahoma. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's what that's the label you want to give me today, and I'll take it.
We're going to give it to you, buddy. And so just so our listeners know a little bit about this, we had a Zoom call with some of our pastors out in Oklahoma the other day, and I was talking to Brother Mike, and he was telling me some of the work you guys are doing there at the Harrah Church, and it just really intrigued me. And especially as we think about, in December, we focus on trying to reach our community. We think about the 3 for 30 goals that we have. One of them is reach your community and also train/disciple others. So really what you guys are doing sounds like something that a lot of us need to focus more on and think about how we're doing personally and in our particular churches. So how did this all start, Chris? How did you find yourself in this discipleship making model there outside Oklahoma City?
Oh man, so first of all, Dr. Moody, thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. So I came to Christ in '99, and then was part of my first church split in 2002. And man, it was a pretty nasty thing.
Yeah.
And watched that kind of play out until 2009, and it was just a rocky road that entire time. Rolled into 2010, and the church that I was part of, the church that had split off, we decided to launch a second campus. And so we did. And that second campus, when it launched, it was 3 times the size of the original campus.
Wow.
And so things were good. You would go, hey, this is really nice. People are coming to Christ, getting baptized. And in that story, I knew down deep in my soul that they were coming to Christ and getting baptized, but nobody knew what to do with them after that other than put them into a small group, right?
Yeah.
And back in that process, Dr. Moody, I was actually raising money to go plant another church in another state. And so after we launched that church in 2010, I would leave there, and my family would move to Kansas City. We would launch another church in 2012. And the same story happened again. It launched with a lot of people, in the 300 or 400s, and it was just the same story. In the next 6 months, people would slowly drop off, and you'd be looking for volunteers, and we would start small groups up. But and on the outside, it looked like we were doing something really fantastic. But on Monday morning, the majority of our work on Monday was putting out fires that happened on Sunday because people couldn't get along or couldn't find volunteers or these things. And so in my mind, I had left a career in radiology to actually do full-time ministry at this point. And I'm going, I don't get to hand this problem off to somebody else. I've got to fix it. All right. And so this whole thing started we started small groups. It's first year of a church launch. We have 25 small groups that we're launching. We trained the leaders for 6 weeks. Again, denominationally wise, you would go, that's awesome. Right.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I'm not sure that I would not have sent my kids to 20 of those 25 small groups.
I see.
Because the people were it's not that they were bad. They were just so new in their faith. They're not even believers that you're like, this is not going to defeat the gates of hell.
Yeah.
Right? And so one day I had the small group leaders over to my house. I'm touring around with I don't know how to make disciples. I've never made a disciple who's made a disciple in my life. This is the fall of 2012. And a small group leader comes to me, and I ask her how she's doing. She said, well, we've learned that if we don't use the Bible in the small groups, we get along a lot better. And so we quit using it, and we're not even using it anymore. And it's going fantastic. And I looked at myself and said, what in the world is going on here, Dr. Moody?
Yeah.
And at that point on, I'm just like I told the Lord, I tried to go back to work. I tried to quit ministry, full-time ministry, and go back to radiology. The Lord was clear that was not the path. And so I'm going, I got to figure this out. And one day I'm just sitting with the Lord. It wasn't an aha. It wasn't like some kind of beam from heaven, nothing like that, but I read in the word where all the authority in heaven and earth has been given to do one thing, and that's to make disciples. And I came face to face with the fact that I had never done that. I had never actually intentionally tried to make a disciple. No one had ever taught me how. And man, that's kind of where the journey began, of me breaking a bunch of stuff and starting to figure out how this works. That was the fall of 2012, after I'd been following Jesus since 1999.
Wow. And so from there, though, it's like you say, the outside, some of it looked like it was successful.
Yeah.
That was kind of a wake up moment there, that whole statement. And then you're kind of going through this crisis of belief, if you will. From that, what emerged out of all of that?
Yeah. So I'm kind of going insane in my head, because denominationally wise, like, we're killing it, and we're going to speaking conferences, but I know in my soul, Dr. Moody, I'm like, we are not, like, this is not it.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
like, if you knew what I knew, you would not be calling me to come speak at your conferences, right? So anyway, so in the process, like, the Lord was basically like, you learn how to make a disciple who makes a disciple, or I cannot do ministry any longer.
Yeah.
I just can't. I'm hard-headed. So that was the third church plant that I've been a part of. So it took that many for me to realize, I'm not sure this is what I see in the Word. And I definitely don't see it,
Yeah.
kicking the enemy's rear end, right?
Yeah.
And so in January of that year, in December of that year, a friend of mine told me, he said, the key to all of this is learning to abide, right? And I'm going, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I know about quiet times. I know about, I know about journaling prayers. Like, I know these things, but I don't know what it means to abide. And like, he told me, like, he said, you got to figure it out. And so for the month of December, like, I'm part of one of those high-powered churches where you, like, in December, like, you work your rear end off, and you get as many people on Sunday as you can, and all of these things. And like, I decided that in the month of December that I was going to learn how to abide with the Lord. And just being open, honest, and vulnerable, because I'm a doer. Like, I had to find a place where I could just sit in the presence of Jesus and just learn what he says. And so I began to do that in the month of December. I just began to learn how to abide, for how Chris Moix learns to abide with his Creator. And it took about maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but what I began to see was that everything around me began to get well. So, like, when Jesus says, if you remain with me, you will bear fruit. Like, everything around me was getting well. And people were getting well around me. And so I still didn't know what I was doing with the rest of it. But in January, like, I had just read a bunch of books on making disciples, because nobody had ever trained me. And the one thing that I learned from just reading about Jesus is that Jesus, he handpicked some people and he walked with them. And so I pretended that I knew what I was doing, Dr. Moody. And I went and found about 8 people that I thought were reliable for the gospel. And I did the same thing that Jesus did. I just began to go, like, if I see Jesus doing it, I'm going to do it. And if I don't see Jesus doing it, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I just began to read his word, where it says he told these people to come and follow him, and he'll make them fishers of men. I'm like, I have no idea how this works. I have no idea how to do this, but I'm going to do it. And so in January, I started inviting people in to come and follow me, and I would make them a fisher of men. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. I didn't have a clue. I still don't have a clue, Dr. Moody.
But they came, and they listened.
They came. And it was a crazy year. Because, in as much as where it says, like in Ephesians 1, where it says, this is the gospel of your salvation when you believed it, right? So, like, when you walked out your obedience, the Lord did some kind of amazing thing in us, and the Spirit comes and indwells our hearts. And, like, it's crazy. Well, it's like in John 14:15, he says, out of your love for me, obey me. And in the idea of making disciples, is like, it's not an ask of us. It is the command. And the only really good blueprint we have of it is what Jesus did. Like, he did it. And the reason we're all sitting here is because he did. And, I don't understand this. I don't really know how this works. But if he's like if he said it, we do it.
Yeah.
And so that's really what started the journey. And like Dr. Moody, like, we broke a lot of things. trying to figure it out. But the Lord, like he would always give us enough, like I would tell you, like he always give us enough transformation that we would keep moving with it. And we would watch the royal priesthood begin to rise, and we would begin to watch transformation, and we would begin to watch miraculous things happen. And we would go, like, why should we expect anything different when he says that all the authority in both heaven and earth has been given to us to go do this?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like in the original language, it says that he's given it to Jesus, but the word actually means it's the power given to Jesus that he confers to his saints.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we either believe that the word is completely true or we believe that it doesn't matter at all. And so like we believe that all the power that Jesus has, he's given to his saints to do one thing, and it's to make disciples. And I had to be real with myself going, the only way that I've actually made a disciple is if I know that they can go to somebody that I've walked with and said, hey, who discipled you? And they would give them my name. Right. Mm-hmm. And the only true story that I know that I'm making disciples is if I've not actually made a disciple until the guy that I've walked with is now making disciples.
Mm-hmm.
Because the disciples of Jesus make disciples. It's just normal. And so I had to come to reality with going, like after 13 or 14 years of ministry and loving Jesus, and like I had never actually made a disciple until I started attempting to do it in January of 2013. Like if there's nobody in my life that you can go to and say, hey, who discipled you? And they would give you my name, then I came to the conclusion that I'd never actually made a disciple.
Okay.
And the fruit of disciple making really doesn't land in the fact, have I made a disciple, but can I make a disciple who can make another one? That's the key. Like I'm not just investing in this man for just because I'm supposed to invest in this man. I'm investing in this man so that he will invest in the multitudes.
Yes.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Especially in the season we're in the United States right now. Like how many people are going to come up to somebody and go, hey, like the Lord has asked me to come lay my life down for you just so that you will be better than me. Come follow me and I'll make you a fisher of men. Nobody's doing that. So you can imagine people's shock when you come up to them and say that. They're going, I don't know what you're asking of me, but I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you started that with those 8 folks, and what kind of things were happening as that's going on?
Yeah. So like trying to build a culture of disciple making is like the hardest thing in the world. You know, it takes about 5 years from what I've read. And I found that it depends on how well the soil is in the place that you're at, on how well it really takes to build a discipling culture where it is just the norm to make disciples. Like it's just the norm. Right. And so in the church that I was at, it was not the norm to make disciples. We had planted it as a super evangelistic church, gain the crowds, gain the masses. Right.
Yeah.
But now when we say, hey, now I need you to come into my life and we're actually going to ask you to obey scripture. Oh man.
Yeah.
Like it separates rubber from the road. Right. And so it was a hard road. It was a hard road in the first crew. I made tons of mistakes. Like I tried to disciple too many people at the same time. I asked in people who were not ready to be discipled, you know, who did not want to be discipled, probably is a better case.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that I brought in those 6, I'd actually brought in 10, Dr. Moody. And just being honest on your podcast, 4 of those 10 hate me to this day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the other 6, all right, are making disciples even now. Wow. They have multiplied their life. I don't know how many times between, you know, in the last 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like their whole entire lives have changed and shifted towards the one thing being the one thing. So that's what I say. The first year and a half was really hard. There were a lot of meetings that I found out later behind my back going, what Chris is doing is not good, not of the Lord, because it's completely countercultural to just a Sunday morning. Hey, come on, power, you know, lots of party, balloon, like let's celebrate all these things. But the truth of it is like if there's not transformation happening underneath that, there is no abiding and there's no hearing and obeying. And if those things are not happening, then the church is like, according to John 15, it is absolutely doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're working with them and basically, you know, some people would say doing life and so forth, but
yeah.
You're talking, I assume you're talking about what's going on in each other's lives, talking about applying the scriptures to those situations and so forth.
You bet. So I don't know that we can even talk about how the entire process works for disciple making, because I've been walking with some of the same guys for a year and a half now, still precedent to them. They've just now begun to minister to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But the gist of it is like we get them on the vine.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most, and you would be surprised. Like I would say, when I invite people into my life and I talk to them about, like, here's what the word says, like, if you remain with me, you bear fruit. And if you choose not to remain, you don't bear fruit. 10% of the people I've invited in have no idea what it looks like to be on the vine.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've trained them to go in on Sunday morning and listen to the guy who's on the vine. And so it just becomes natural for them not to be on the vine. They got to go to Sunday to get to the guy who's on the vine.
Yeah.
But what happens is that when you get them on the vine, right, which means they don't just don't hear it. They got to understand what Jesus is teaching them and actually walk it out. Then they begin to transform. And that right there is enough for husbands or wives to go, I want what you have. It's enough for coworkers to go, what's happening to you? It's enough for the congregation to go, I knew you 6 months ago and I know you now, and you're completely different. How did this happen? And it becomes one of the greatest forms of evangelism that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Like, it's way better than throwing a block party, or because it's people's lives being transformed to people that they knew prior to going, you're not the same dude you were a year ago. And it's only because they're hearing and obeying Jesus' voice and actually doing what he says to do. And then the word becomes true. They're bearing fruit, things of eternity. They're bearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not brain surgery, really. It's not. It's simply going, come with me. Let me show you how to study the word. What is Jesus now saying to you? And what is he asking you to do in this moment?
Yeah.
I have seen people do crazy things. I've seen Jesus ask people to do crazy things. I've watched him walk them out, and I've seen things just explode, which then builds my faith.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me a more crazy man for the gospel because I'm watching their obedience play out. So, and it never ends. Like it's a constant story for us. And in people hearing and obeying the voice of the Lord, like it knits your heart together going, this one for sure is one of his.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the same vein, Dr. Moody, you find people who hear his voice and won't obey it ever. And you go, I'm not sure you're one of his.
Yeah.
And that causes a whole nother mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not plain of heart.
It's not. And it sounds like, what you're doing, it takes time. It's not just knowing, okay, we've got this on Sunday, we've got this on Wednesday, which is what some people have gotten into, a regimen.
Right.
You're actually, you may be with them in the morning, you may be with them in the night, anytime, but you've got to be with them. Yeah,
it's exactly right. It is the hardest part for the believer in this is rearranging their life for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the process of disciple making takes a while, because they're in the process of rearranging their life, all right, for it to become the thing that they do. It's not a thing that they do. It's who they are. It's who they become. And so it is a process when we go, hey, this is what Christianity used to look like, Sunday evening, Wednesday, to going, Sunday may not need to be where you need to be right now. Like what may need to be is like, you need to be with me at my house, eating breakfast, talking about the things of the Lord and how you are walking them out. And so it shifts. Now, I don't want the listeners to hear that and say that we don't do Sunday, because we do Sunday. Sunday is a huge place for us to catch more fish. It is no longer the thing that we do. Disciple making is the thing, and it drives everything else that we do, which is why we were able to stop doing Sunday and move to house church, and stop house church and move back to Sunday, because it's just a thing that we do. It's just a vehicle that we use, but the vehicle we use is the vehicle of making disciples. We can make disciples.
And so you think about, we're in the midst of a pandemic, so everything got shifted away, like from big activities and so forth.
Yeah.
Or more what you're trying to do, none of that changed, did it?
Right. Like you caught my ear when we were in the Zoom meeting, because you said, I think COVID is designed to teach us how to make disciples. And I went, holy cow, like truth.
Yeah.
Because like bring on any pandemic you want, disciple making is immune to it. Sunday gathering is not immune to those things, right? Like we were watching it in play. Even like, well, it doesn't matter what vehicle it is, because disciple making, it is immune. It is immune to lack of money. It is immune to disease. It is immune to, it's immune to that vehicle is just immune. And I'm pretty sure it's why Jesus said, here's a vehicle I want you to use, because it brings the kingdom the fastest, because nothing can stop it.
Yeah. So you're thinking, or let's say somebody's watching this, they're thinking, well, how do I do this? What do I, because everybody's like step 1, step 2, step 3, so
Yeah.
how would you suggest, be it pastor, be it regular, so-called regular person? Everybody's supposed to be a disciple maker, though.
You got it. Come on, Dr. Moody.
So what is step 1? Tell them what to do from that standpoint.
Yeah. I would say step 1 for you is that like you really have to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you do, the secondary nature to that is the loving of the people. Right. And if there's no loving of the people in your life, then I would say the first one's not really happening. Mm-hmm. Right. Which is the story of remaining. Like I read a survey one time, Dr. Moody, that said that 99% of the local church does not know why they should abide. Right. And so it is the key of getting on the vine. Like you like to not just quiet time, but you like to learning how to remain with the Father with unbroken fellowship. Like you see the kingdom of heaven everywhere you walk. That's kind of step 1. Mm-hmm. Man, step 2 is just look at Jesus's life. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing stuff that Jesus didn't do, I would probably say reevaluate why you're doing it. Because if I'm reminded correctly, Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life, which when he says I am the way, it actually means that he's the way. Yeah. Right? He's the way to heaven, but he's also the way to heaven on the earth. Right? Which was the whole thing. He came teaching, preaching the kingdom of God is near right now. Change your mind and believe what I'm trying to tell you. He's like, you're only going to find your life when you lay it down, which the only way to lay it down is to give it to somebody who may not deserve it, which is what he did for us, which is why it matters so much. But that would be part 2. Is like, you gotta decide, is his words true? Mm-hmm. And if they are true, then if all the authority in heaven and earth has been given for you to do it, then you've got to set your mind to going, it has to become conviction for you, not I think this is good or bad. Like it has to be conviction. And the next step is you start finding people who listen to you, who like you. Like in Luke chapter 10, it says, if there's peace there, you stay. If there's not peace, you move on, mm-hmm. right? So you test the ground for peace. And if there's peace there, you stay with them. Like you invite them into your life and you begin to walk with them to teach them how to make disciples. You can make disciples. Like we always ask people this question in discipling, like, are you reliable for me? In 2 Timothy 2:2, it says for you and I to invest our life into reliable men and women who will invest their life into reliable men and women. All right. In context, it's Paul to Timothy to the next generation, to the next generation. And so I ask my guys all the time, like, you need to tell me if you're not reliable, because mm-hmm. the command on my life is to invest my life into reliable men. And if you're reliable, then you will invest your life into reliable men. Mm-hmm. They got to rise to that challenge. Right.
Right.
I don't know. I could talk 1,000 things. Here's where I always land the plane, if it's cool, is that it's always easier if somebody teaches you. Mm-hmm. Right. But in the same vein, Dr. Moody, like no one taught me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I am like I go with the fact that the best teacher is sometimes Jesus, but Jesus also gives us people in our lives that help us along the path. Right. And so we love to talk about disciple making with anybody. Like if they want to call, like we help them walk through stuff. We have ways that we don't ever tell people what to do. We have this tool that we stole from a guy named Mike Green called the Learning Circle, which is how we help people hear the voice of the Lord and obey it. And so it is never on us to tell anybody what they're supposed to do. Otherwise we become Pharisees.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we become Pharisees, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah. So, but you came back to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, the greatest commandment. So in a way you're saying, look at yourself, think about where you're at, where you are with the Lord, abiding in him, following him. Another aspect is love your neighbors yourself. So, you pick those 10 people, that first set. So who are the people kind of in your life? Who are the people you mentioned there a moment ago, the people that listen to you, mm-hmm. the people you've got some influence in. Yeah. For some people, it's their children at that point. It could be any number of people, but people you've got some sort of influence with. Yeah. And then I liked what you said. We dust the hill off if people don't really want to listen, if they don't really want it.
Right.
move to the next person.
Yeah.
And basically you're saying just you're willing to follow the Lord and do whatever he would ask you of, and you're asking others to do the same, and then to turn around and identify those people in their lives and be doing that with them.
You got it. You got it. It's right. Like in as much as what Jesus says, he says to us, he says, the harvest is plentiful, but it's the workers that are few.
Yeah.
So pray to the Lord of the harvest to send you workers, right? And in the world of that we live in on Sunday, we're like, oh, we want a bigger church. We want more people to show up. Like, but the Lord would say, you're asking the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like the harvest will come, but you need to ask for workers so that when the harvest shows up, you know what to do with them, which is what I did not know what to do for the first 15 years of my life in ministry. But now I know, like, you ask for workers and you train those workers on how to become ministers of the gospel, and then the Lord he'll bring the harvest, because he says, I'm the Lord of both the worker and the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And we are living proof that goes, like, if we'll just do it, what he says, Dr. Moody, like churches won't die.
Yeah.
Like churches, they will not die.
Yeah.
So the motor of the church is making disciples.
So you're a pastor out there right now and you're thinking, where do I go? What do I start? There's somebody in that church that listens to you.
There is.
There may be 3 or 4, however many. You're pouring your lives into those folks. You're a church, you don't have a pastor. There's somebody that listens to you. Pour your life into them, and it sounds like the other thing is, though, we're stressing, and all the way you are pouring your life into someone else, whoever that would be. And so this works for a church that doesn't have a pastor, because whoever's listening, all you do is you go make disciples. It works for a church that's like, what's up? We don't have this, we don't have that. If you've got somebody, you've got something, you can do, so it sounds like that's really what you all did. You tried to take the word and apply it to yourselves and teach others to do that as well.
Yeah, that's it. Like, like for you and I, like we learned that ministry, like, it's fulfilling because you see people get well because you gave them their life. But for whatever reason, people have a hard time making that jump. Like, just like the disciples did. Like, Jesus poured his life into them, and then when the going got tough, they went and hid.
Yeah.
Right. But when they made the jump that they were ministers of the gospel, like it flourished. And so we're doing the same thing. We're trying to teach people to become like Jesus, little Jesuses. And as we learn to minister the gospel to other people, we're teaching them to first minister to themselves and then minister the gospel to other people, and they get well.
And everyone's a minister, whether you're an ordained minister, but everybody's called to minister to others. So when we answer that, we're set.
You got it. You got it. Like, people look at you and I and go, well, they're the ministers because they get a paycheck.
Right.
And the truth of it is that the only reason people call us ministers is because we end up getting a paycheck.
Right.
But if you and I both know that if we stop getting a paycheck, we're still ministers. Yeah. Because it's who we are. And
every Christian's an ambassador. Every Christian's a burden bearer.
You got it.
That is good stuff, my friend. Thank you, Chris, for sharing with us today. Anything else before we close out today that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, man, I'm just thankful for you, Dr. Moody, and your work in your ministry to the gospel.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for what you guys are doing in Oklahoma. Thank you for what you're doing there and we're praying for you, praying for your family, and we're just so happy about what's happening there. God bless you, Chris. Let's close out in prayer. Let's ask the Lord will send us more workers, and that we truly will go forward and make more disciples. Yeah. Father, we thank you for giving us Chris today, for him to be able to share with us. We thank you for what you're doing with him there at his church. We thank you for what so many of those folks that are going forth and being disciple makers, what they're doing. We ask that you'll be with all of our listeners right now. Help everyone to identify, first of all, and first just ask themselves, am I listening to the Lord? Am I abiding in him? Do I love the Lord with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength? Because we've got to have something to give to others, or we've got to have something within ourselves before we can give to others. Yeah. Lord, we also ask that you'll help us to identify right now someone, maybe several people, a couple of people that you would have us to pour our lives into, to walk along in this journey following you, and that we would go forth. We wouldn't just listen to this podcast and say, oh, well, that was interesting. We would go forth and we would be busy making disciples with those that we interact with, those that you lay upon our heart. And we know there's people you're going to do that to us with. And so help us to do that. Be with Chris, bless his family, give them strength, give them comfort during this season. It's in your name we pray. Amen.